Quick tutorial on how to make a UI menu in Godot. For starters, to create the base control node for our UI canvas. If we started a new project, just click the user interface node on the create root node, or create a new scene with the plus icon. In this case, I just started a new project, so all I have to do is click user interface, and that creates the root node for our UI. This scene hasn't been saved yet, so we can hit Control S and save it as main menu, for example. Now, right-click main menu wherever you saved it in your folder hierarchy. Set it as main scene. Now when we hit play, this scene will be the one that we'll see. Although we haven't added any UI elements yet, so we're not seeing anything. Next, right-click the control node and add a child. See beneath the control node and you will see all the UI elements that you can add. For instance, I'm just going to search a VBox container, which is under the box container section. This is a vertical one and this is a horizontal one. This allows us to organize further elements beneath this node, vertically in this case. I'll also be adding a label, which is another UI element. With this, we can write all games name, for example. However, this isn't very organized. It's just being put at the top left. So in order to get our UI elements organized properly, we need to hit the control node and in the layout section, click Anchors Preset and select Center, for example. You could also select any of the others or even make a custom. This is basically how the UI elements are going to be arranged in relation to the corners of the screen. If you put it top left, everything's going to be arranged in this UI in relation to the top left corner of the screen. If you put it centered, which is my idea, everything will be arranged from the center of the screen. Next, we can add another child node and a button. And finally, we can add a link. This will be my 3 UI elements. However, they're not properly spaced, so we will have to tweak them a bit. Let's add another child node on the container. Margin container. Let's duplicate this one by Control D while selected. We'll have 3 copies of this margin container. We'll put the label in the first one, the button in the second, and the link button on the third. But in Godot, if you want to space your UI elements, you will have to use a margin container. Let's write something on our link button. And as for the button, let's write play. Now, as you can see, our VBox container is being placed relative to our previous node's position. Our previous node was centered in Anchors preset, and our VBox container is actually set to position, which will just place it like this. We have to set it to anchors, and then specify anchor preset centered. That way it will be centered relative to its parent node. You'd probably want to add more buttons. We can do that by duplicating our button margin container. Now we can change the names of this button, credits, and exit. Note that if you set your anchor preset to your control node to full rect, this might actually disable any other UIs in the background or behind this menu so that they might not be susceptible to clicking. So I wouldn't recommend it. I'm going to preserve this structure because it's simple. So if we wanted our game's title higher, we can hit the margin container and in theme overrides constant, enable the margin to wherever you want to add some space. For example, in margin bottom. Now this is a lot of space. We can just set it to 50. Our first button's margin container, we can set a padding of 10. And on the next, also a padding of 10. And for the URL, a top margin there. This should be good. You might notice the URL is not centered. In order to get it centered, in the margin container, click container sizing and change horizontal to shrink center. Now we have a simple menu. If we hit play, we can actually play around with it. You'll see the buttons are not functional yet because we haven't connected them to anything, so they will be visible and interactable. However, we can also notice that if we expand the window, the menu's size remains the same. You might want this, but if you don't want it, just go to Project Settings, under Display, Window, and Stretch Mode is currently at disabled, so make sure it's at canvas_items. This way, all canvas items will be stretched, basically resized, when the window changes size. Now close and hit play. Now, when we expand the window, you'll see that the UI elements expand with it. Another thing you'll probably want to do, since this main menu looks a bit dull, is stylize your menu buttons. In order to do this, hit Theme and create a new theme. Now clicking Theme will display this section beneath, where you can edit how your buttons look when they are disabled, toggled, pressed, and hovered on. Go to the plus icon in the theme editor and select Button as type. This will allow us to edit the different states of the button and how they're going to be shown graphically. Let's start by giving it a style in its normal state. Click the plus icon. Then select a new style box flat. You'll notice the icons went grey. Now if you hit the style box flat, you can actually choose a background color. You can also set a border. For example, we can give it a border beneath. You can change the color of the border. You can also use this little icon here to actually pick a color from the screen. So I'll pick the same blue color and give it a bit more dark. Next, in the corner radius, we can choose a radius for each one of the corners of the button. For example, we could just give it a 5, 5, and 5. This way the entire button will be rounded. This is in order to expand the size of the actual button. For now, I'll just expand left and right. You can also add a shadow behind your buttons. Well, this is a simple example, so I'm going to leave my menu like this. To finish this simple tutorial, I'll just show you how you can connect the buttons to actual code functionality. If you select a button and go to the Node tab, the good thing about Godot is that it offers many different events that you can just hook functions to. You can select the pressed event and add a function to it by double-clicking. You can use the picker or just select where your script is and select the method. However, in this example, I don't have any methods or scripts set up, so I can't really do it. So I'll just show you how I did it in my other menu. So this is the menu I made for my own game. And you can see here that there's a start button. And in the node section, I hooked it up with a begin game. This method, if I double click, you'll see it's in my main menu.gd script with the function begin game, which calls a global class, basically changes the scene to the next scene. All you have to do is add this script to your control node, your root node, for your UI. Then create the method and hook it up to the event. This is how our menu looks like right now. But as you can see, we haven't edited the other states of the button yet. In order to do that, let's go back to a theme editor in the root control node. A thing you can do in order to copy the style of the pressed, hovered, and normal button states is just go to your state, like for example your normal state, save it as normal button state, or more like normal button style. Then in your folder hierarchy, you can just Control D, save it as pressed, then Control D again, and save it as hover. So now you have the same style duplicated. You want similar styles, but you don't want them to be exactly the same, so you'll edit each one of them. For example, when I'm hovering, I'll make the button a bit clearer. And when it's pressed, I'll make it darker. So this should provide a bit of a difference. But of course, feel free to style it further. Go to the style section, load for the hover. Normal is already loaded. And for pressed, load pressed. You might notice when I click, this white square shows up. In order to get rid of it, you also have to edit another style. In the control node theme, go to the focus, add a new style box empty. This way, that weird square white thing will not show up when you click. And there it is. Now you can click and it doesn't show up. Thanks to Godot's node-based system, every node can be displayed as a scene in itself, or added to another scene. In my own game, I made 2 menu nodes that I can add to my main menu 3D scene, like so. So I have my levels main menu scene.tscn, which is basically the 3D scene I prepared. This one is set as main scene, so when I hit play, it will be displayed. Now, what I want to do is add my main menu scene and main menu title scene, which I also made for this purpose. And these two will be displayed right on top of the camera. So make sure that you actually have a camera. In my case, I made this orbital camera, but you could just add camera 3D. And this way, both the scene and the menus will be visible. In case you want to overlap your canvas onto a 3D scene, you could also overlap it onto a 2D scene. Or you could just set a actual background to your original main menu node tree. Because this grey background is a bit dull, so now if I hit play, you'll see both the 3D and the menu on top of it. You'll notice everything is resizing. It's also resizing other UI elements because we had the canvas resize set in project settings as I showed you before. So even other UI elements like these from my game are also getting resized. You can also add horizontal box containers within vertical box containers and actually make like grids of buttons, distribute them with the anchor techniques that I've shown you, margin each component as necessary with the margin containers. So I hope this was helpful, and please don't forget to subscribe and like this video. This was my first tutorial, so it would really encourage me to make more tutorials. Thanks for watching.